Miss a beat. He didn't even feel it. The next honoree is very, very similar to Bob O'Neill. Whenever you talk to players, good morning. When you look at the 50s and you talk about the great players who played in the 50s, and you talk about the players who played in the 40s, and you talk about who the great linemen were of that period of time, there's one name that everybody talks about. So that when you start to consider people for the Hall of Fame who have not had the credentials of yards gained or passes completed, you start to look at reputation. Who did everybody think was the best? Who did everybody acknowledge was the best? Whether they made an all-scholastic team or overlooked and had to wait until they played in an all-star game before everybody understood what everybody in Watertown knew for a long time, that he was the best. So when we talked about this at the Hall of Fame, and it's come up over a number of years, and we talked about John Marini, the one thing everybody talked about, well, you recognize that he was the best. There wasn't a lineman who played in that period of time, in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, that was any better than John Marini. Raider head football coach Joe Zeno asked a great deal of Marini in the fall of 1953. Marini was asked to be a team leader as a co-captain. He was asked to play multiple positions in the offensive line. And as a lone senior classman, Marini was asked to assist coaching the young offensive line. John was the only starting senior lineman on the team. Lenny Hill, who was inducted into the Watertown Hall of Fame in 1995, complimented Marini on his great ability, but also his ability to work with the younger players on the team. He played with some great players. He played with Dick Berardino. He played with Ted Kelly. He played with Lou Romanelli. And he played in Watertown's 1953 championship season. Tremendous season with impressive triumphs. 28-13 over Ringe Tech, 18-6 over Revere, 24-7 over Malden Catholic, 25-13 over Brookline, 32-0 over Cambridge Latin, and 31-6 on Thanksgiving Day. A tremendous football career. It should be no surprise that after a tremendous football career in which he was recognized by his peers, by those who played with him, as the best, that he built a solid name for himself in real estate development, running his own firm, John Marini Management Company in Canton. One of Marini's current projects, Franklin Center Commons, was highlighted recently and praised in a February 2006 Boston Globe magazine feature. 1982, Governor Ed King appointed Marini to the board of Massachusetts Housing Financing Agency. Governor Mike Dukakis elevated Marini to its chairman, which he served for the next 2 years. The agency controlled and built in excess of 65 subsidized rental units and finished in excess of 28,000 single-family homes to first-time buyers. It's no surprise to anybody who played with him here and knew him in Watertown that he would turn into a tremendous business success. He's recognized by those who played with him, those who watched him play, as one of the greatest linemen in the history of Watertown High School, John Marini. Please stand.
You're going to have to excuse me, I'm a little nervous. I didn't expect this here, and I never stood in front of so many people. And I'm not a speaker, but I'm going to try it this time because I feel like I'm at home now, and if I make a fool of myself, it's not going to matter because we're all friends and this is my home. So, so I'm going to try. But basically, I really want to thank the committee, Watertown High, all my friends and family members for the privilege of accepting this honor that I treasure so wonderfully. It means so much to me. Over the years, I've accepted numerous awards throughout the state in regards to housing and development, and no award means as much to me as this award I'm receiving tonight. It's just touching. I'm trying to memorize. I memorize this thing all the time, and I can't. Um, with the exception, basically, of my 51-year marriage to my wife, Catherine, the, the birth of my 4 children, and the birth of my 5 grandchildren, this is the next thing and the most meaningful thing in my life. I say that very sincerely. I just want to just tell you a couple of stories, if I may, and I hope they come out right. But the first story I want to say is Bob mentioned to me, the Master of Ceremonies mentioned about being on a state housing board, and I always remember that, and I was kind of a little intimidated because I went to my first board of directors meeting, and I sat down, and I was the only guy there that didn't know anybody, didn't know nothing, and didn't even know where the place was. So I sat down, and I sat down next to the executive director who I met before I got there, and they started. It was a 12-member board, and they started introducing. Everybody was going to introduce everybody, and the first fellow was, geez, I have to read this here. Was A&F. The fellow gets up. He says, "I am A&F Secretary of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts." The next fellow gets up. I'm Speaker of the House of Massachusetts. The next guy gets up. He says, "I'm head of Ways and Means." The other person gets up. "I'm the president of the New England Merchants Bank." And the other fellow gets up and he said he's the A&F Secretary. Secretary EOCD, which is Secretary of Housing. You know, and on and on and on like this. And it came to me, and by the time it got to me, I really was in a cold sweat, and I said to myself, what am I going to say? What did I do? I was, at that time, this was in the 80s, I was building some houses, and I was framing houses at the same time, and, you know, I mean, I just, in fact, I didn't even have a tie on, which really got me sick. So it came to me, and the only thing I could think of, Watertown High, 1954. You know, I tell you, I broke on a cold sweat. I said, Jesus, what you know, what are they going to do? They're going to throw me out of here? So, but anyway, it worked. It really worked because, you know what happened? I was there, it was a 7-year term, and I ended up, after the second year, King, who I was very, very friendly with, lost